Tommy Lloyd and the power forward position has been a strength for the University of Arizona during his time here. We're going to explore how we got there and what this means going forward.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now we are going to talk a lot of Arizona basketball and maybe a little bit of recruiting at the end of the show. But why don't we talk about the power forward position under Tommy Lloyd? Now, this has been a position that has been very, very good for the University of Arizona, and it has been from drastically different perspectives. Look at Tommy Lloyd's first two seasons. You had Azuolas Tubelis, who Azuolas Tubelis was probably the third best player on the team in Lloyd's first season here, behind Ben Mathurin, Christian Coloco, and he had a pretty good season, all conference type year. Then the second season, he was basically in contention for the Pac-12 Player of the Year all the way throughout. And I think a lot of people thought he should have won it, but I had no problem with Jaime Jaquez getting that. I think Jaime Jaquez has a little bit more of a dog in him. But either way, Azuolas Tubelis was very, very good. And he was able to do it from a variety of different ways. He was able to do it scoring around the basket. He was able to also do a lot of high-lows with Umar Ballo, leader of men, and just look natural. I mean, he was a cerebral player that fit in very well with what Tommy Lloyd was trying to do with his entire roster. And I think you probably can see a template that Tommy Lloyd wants to have all conference power forwards when you can. And the latest is then last year was Keshad Johnson. Now, Keshad Johnson was completely different than Azuolas Tubelis, and you don't need me to tell you that. You're smarter than me. You already know that. When you watch Keshad Johnson, you can tell that he did not have nearly any of the offensive type game that Azuolas Tubelis did, but what he was able to do is defensively, he was fantastic. He was kind of that junkyard dog, and in a lot of big games, he generally played his best, and you saw that, when he was at San Diego State. San Diego State, he averaged, 5 points and 5 rebounds, and Tommy Lloyd took him and said, I'm going to turn you into a player that's going to be more suitable to be able to make an impact in the NBA, and lo and behold, he did just that. You look at Keshad Johnson now, you see him on NBA draft boards, and you also see him as somebody that's probably going to make an impact sooner than later. And like I said, he very much feels like a Miami Heat type player that they're going to get in the second round, and he's going to have a 9 or 10 year career as his 7th or 8th guy, just kind of a winning basketball player. You win basketball games with guys like Keshad Johnson, and Keshad Johnson was not that dude when he was at San Diego State. Keep in mind, when Keshad Johnson was at San Diego State, he wasn't shooting threes. He wasn't doing any of that. But when Tommy Lloyd got here, when Tommy Lloyd got a hold of him, he said, I'm going to allow you to shoot some threes. And that's what turned him into an NBA prospect. He's looked at now as a 3-and-D type player, and that was nothing that he showed before. As a matter of fact, in his 1 year at Arizona, he made more threes than he did during his entire time at San Diego State. And that is something that you can't really minimize. In this day and age, Tommy Lloyd is able to sell that, hey, man, I brought in this guy, and they didn't really let him shoot at all. And after a little bit of time with me, guess what? He's now an NBA player and changed his game. Now, Trey Townsend, my friends, Trey Townsend. Here's where it gets fascinating. I love getting Trey Townsend. Out of all the power forwards in the portal, this was the guy I wanted. And a big reason why is I think that Arizona needs players that when the going gets tough, they can put the ball in the basket. And that is something that Arizona did not have. That is something that Arizona did not have an abundance of, in that Clemson game, for example. When Caleb Love, when his shot wasn't falling, he stopped driving to the hoop, and I think that's something that was obviously a concern. Pelle Larsson was just kind of, whatever. But the only one that really was able to be able to slow the game down and keep everything going was Jaden Bradley. Come March, you need players that when everything slows down, they can get their own bucket. And obviously, Keshad Johnson, as much as I like Keshad, as much as he was able to do some really good things, he was not able to just get the ball, get out of his way, and get a bucket. He didn't have that type of game. Trey Townsend has that type of a game. And again, I'm saying all of this because they're all different. Azuolas Tubelis, all conference dude. Keshad Johnson, all conference dude. And I think that Trey Townsend's got the potential to be an all conference type player as well. Trey Townsend, I think, is going to lead the team in rebounding. And I think he's probably going to be about 12, 13 points per game. But he also has shown that when the going gets tough, he can get a bucket. And that is something that Arizona has not had in long supply of in the Tommy Lloyd era. And I think that's a big reason come NCAA tournament time why this team is bogged down is because, they are very reliant on the three-point shot. And not a lot of these guys are really great three-point shooters, and they didn't really get to the bucket. Look at last year. Pella Larson, whatever. Kylan Boswell obviously wasn't good at all for Arizona. That was a major problem. And Caleb Love could get to the bucket, but a lot of times he just chose not to. With Jaden Bradley, that's not going to be the case. But I think Trey Townsend's going to fit in very well there as well. You look at some of the games that he had this season, whether that was against North Carolina State, team that went on to play in the Final Four, 31-13. You look against Kentucky, 17-11. I can keep going. Illinois, Xavier put up those. And I don't care about the field goal percentage. I think a lot of these people don't understand that when you're looking at efficiency, if you're going to be double teamed, you're going to not have as good of efficiency. When you're the conference player of the year, everybody is gunning for you. Everybody knows that you're the one that they need to stop. So the whole efficiency thing, I think, is a bunch of blather because it does not necessarily apply here. And I think that's something that you need to definitely keep in mind with Townsend. The other thing that I think that you really, really have going for with Townsend, though, is that I think he's going to be kind of a space eater. Guys like that, listen, against bigger teams, he was able to get his own buckets. And he was able to, again, like I said, when the game slows down. But there's an underrated aspect to him that we're going to get to in just a second. But first, eBay Motors. eBay Motors, my friends. Check it out, eBay Motors. All right. We're in the day and time where, cut out the middleman. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. Check it out again. eBay Motors. This is eBay Motors is where it is at. And again, you will thank me later for this one. Save yourself some money, get the parts you need, and then give it to somebody you trust. Not the guy that is probably going to screw you out of like $300-400 of your hard-earned dollars. Check it out. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now I think there's kind of an ace in the hole here when we're talking about Trey Townsend. I think he's going to be a very, very good facilitator for the U of A. I think he's going to average +4 assists per game. He averaged 3.6 last year, and that's not without guys that can finish like he's going to have at the University of Arizona. And I think that you watch him, he is a natural passer. He's kind of got that. He's a smart basketball player. He's very intuitive, and that's something that I don't think that you can really take away. And I think that Arizona is going to utilize that. Jaden Bradley is your 1 point guard that you have on the roster that I think is going to play. Like I said, if Conrad Martinez ends up playing, I will gratefully and gladly say I was wrong, Conrad. I just don't see that in the Big 12. But again, I would love to be wrong on that. But with Trey Townsend, we do know that he can pass the ball. I expect him and Jaden Bradley to be the team's assist leaders this year. And Jaden Bradley also will allow him to be able to kind of put his head down, get to the basket, and be able to cause some problems that last year Arizona didn't really have a lot of guys that could. And the other thing, too, if you double Trey Townsend, which I don't see a lot of that happening, then he's going to be able to get the ball to somebody that's going to be able to make a play. Again, this dude is going to be able to cause some real problems because he can score on his own, but if you double him, he's going to find the open player, and I expect the offense to work through him a lot of the time. He's a versatile player that I don't think that people are necessarily giving enough respect to as far as his versatility goes. So we will see how that one plays out. But like I said, when you look at the transfer portal and what everything was, this was the kid that I wanted from day one, and this is the kid that I think Arizona wanted. So take that for what it's worth. But I also think there's going to be a fourth straight year of an all-conference type player from Tommy Lloyd at that power forward position. And the power forward's a unique position in this day and age because it's a position where you can get kind of a potpourri of everything. You can get guys that can shoot and play defense like a Keshad Johnson. You can get a guy who can finish around the hoop and can run the court and is a pretty good passer like an Azuolas Tubelis. You can get a guy who is a very good passer and can finish around the hoop and get a lot of rebounds like a Trey Townsend. It's kind of a jack of all trades position in this stage. And when you're Arizona, I think that's something that you very much embrace, and it's something that you should very much embrace. There's a lot to like about it. But like I said, I'm excited to see what Townsend can do. If you were to tell me that Townsend was going to be all conference in the Big 12, I totally get it. And honestly, in the Big 12, that's a different level of basketball. You got 5 of the top 10 teams in the entire country, as we've talked about. But I think he's going to be one of the better big men. And I think that Arizona is going to be much, much better for the wear for that. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, wanted to talk a little bit about the power forward position, but now we are going to preview the little bit of recruiting. All right, tomorrow it's going to be all Section 7 talk. Arizona is, first of all, you should go out there if you can. It's in Glendale. It's a good event. You got a lot of really good players that Arizona is going to be looking at. Your Tunde Yesafus, your Braden Burries, your Cam Holmes, all kinds of guys like that that are very good. And it's a good time. I will be out there. I would love to meet some of you. But but like I said, it's also a fun event. You got courts going the entire time. You got games going, so you can pretty much just kind of hop around from event to event, and you know that it's you're going to watch some really good players. You're also going to watch Tommy Lloyd. You'll probably watch Bruce Pascoe at some point try to corner Tommy Lloyd, and that will be even funnier as well. But overall, though, like I said, just a really, really good time. And I think the thing that is fun, but I think the thing that is very enjoyable about these is that you just kind of get to see kids in their, in their open environments, how everything plays, how everything breaks down. And these kids are good. Like I said, Tommy Lloyd, the people that had questions about Tommy Lloyd's recruiting, I don't think have those questions anymore. I mean, I think he's definitely answered those questions, and he's answered those questions in spades. I also think that you're going to see a loaded 2025 class for Arizona. If Arizona was to get somebody like, Arizona was to get a class with a Tunde Yesafu, a Braden Burries, a Xavion Stanton, that would not surprise me in the least. I could very much see that being the case, and wouldn't surprise me. And so again, we're going to talk a lot about that. Also wanted to talk a little bit about football as well. I expect some more commitments to come rolling in here. Arizona had a very nice visitor on campus. Got to kind of keep it on the lowdown for right now. But overall, Arizona and Brent Brennan, I think you're going to find out this is going to be a good 2025 class. This group knows what they are doing. And again, I know that it doesn't necessarily have the sizzle of some, but overall, he knows what he's doing, and he's a good dude. And I think you've seen already with the 2025 class that you can see things that are already kind of starting to – you've already got your quarterback. You've got a big-time wide receiver. You got a running back. You got a tight end. Keep in mind, we're going to keep talking about the tight end because the tight end is going to be utilized a lot in this offense. But – I think when it's all said and done, you're probably going to have a recruiting class. It's going to be probably somewhere around 30 or 35. And honestly, at Arizona, if you got a good coach that is able to get through all of that and is able, then I don't think that is really, I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that's a drawback, because you look at some of the best coaches in the entire country, and a lot of these guys are coaches that, don't get the highest rated classes, but they're able to coach players up and they're able to develop them. We like I said, before, Kyle Whittingham is a perfect example. Kyle Whittingham's classes are always in the 50s, yet somehow Utah is generally ranked 9th at the end of the season. The dude gets what he's doing, but that's the template. Again, you got to be able to scout. And I think Brent Brennan, from his time at San Jose State, that's probably a fair assessment that he knows what he's doing in that regard. And we're going to find out, though, if he can get high 3-star kids and develop them and build them up. We're going to find out. It's going to be fun to watch. But like I said, tomorrow going to be all Section 7 talk because, like I said, Tunde Yesafu, Braden Burries, a lot of different players. Plus, Tommy Lloyd is fun to watch as he goes around there, because with Lloyd, he pretends that he's not watching players when he is watching them the entire time, even when he is talking and hobnobbing around with coaches. But as always, very much appreciate you making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. We'll be back with you tomorrow.